Hello viewers, today we will be talking on infection and immunity. I will be covering following points in this lecture, that is infection and infection causing organisms, classifications of infections, sources of infections, modes of transmission of infection. Let's define what is infection. It's the lodgment and multiplication of a parasite in or on the tissues of the host. Now, what is lodgment? Like when a parasite enters inside the body, it finds a base and there it goes and multiplies and replicates. And while multiplying and replication, it uses the host machinery, host cells are disturbed, host organs are disturbed, and it can cause disease to the host. While this organism is multiplying, immunity plays a role too. Immune cells rush and fight out this organism. These parasites now can be any kind of microbes. In the next slide, I will show you what are the microbes which can cause infections. Just in this slide, let us learn that two kinds can be there which are responsible for causing infections. We call them pathogens or commensals. Both pathogens and commensals are microbes. Pathogens are the ones who will enter from outside and can generate disease. And commensals are the ones which are residing with us. Remember, we are not alone. Our body is not the human body, is not a body which contains only human cells. Approximately 39 trillion microbes are there in our body. So we are like Earth. We are a planet, living planet for microbes. N number of microbes reside with us, and they are in, it's like a unity in diversity. We as an Earth, as an organism, human being is there, and there are n different kind of microorganisms residing in us, and they are harmoniously doing their function, not disturbing us, and even some are helping us, and some are just deriving their food from us and causing no problem. These commensals, when their number increases or our immunity decreases, in any of this reason occur, these commensals can become opportunistic. And when they are opportunistic, you know the meaning of opportunistic, they take the opportunity to divide and increase in number. And as their number increases, they can cause infections to us. So infections can be caused by the organisms which are not residing inside our body, and infection can be caused by the organism which are coming from outer environment. These infections can be caused by viruses. We all are witnessing viruses can cause dangerous infections. And in last lecture, I have told you about the coronavirus, how it adheres to ACE2 cells and take up goes into the genetic material and take up the genetic material of cells and multiply and then come out through endoplasmic reticulum of the same cell. And then their number, as they multiply and they start infecting other cells too, and they cause problem. They even take up the immune cells machinery and stop them to produce interferons. Interferons are the ones which are going to kill virus, but they have taken up the whole of the machinery. So these viruses are strong agents which can cause infections. I will keep repeating the definition of infection. It should be very clear. Once the microbes enter inside the body, it finds a lodgment and start multiplying there. Same thing happens with bacteria. Some bacteria multiplies very rapidly. Once they multiply there, they produce toxins too. They have different antigenic structures which cause different kind of problems. Like if we talk about Staphylococcus aureus, it has a lot of toxins, leukocidins, which can kill our immune cells too. And thus they can produce problem and cause infections. Then there are certain parasites like Entamoeba histolytica and some helminths. These nematohelminths are also there. These nematodes, these can cause, they too can cause infections, while these helminths are not microbes, some are multicellular too. But here I am talking about the infections which these can also cause. Then fungus, there are different kind of fungi which can cause different kind of infections. Fungi are more bothersome, then they do not cause very dangerous. Some can, rare case, virus, fungi can be lethal, but lot of the time fungi cause skin diseases, skin lesions, and they are more bothersome. Irritation, they cause a lot. While one more, prion. Prions are the ones which are the unfolded proteins, mismatched proteins, and these proteins do not carry any genetic material, but they can directly damage our brain cells, host brain cells. So prions can also cause problems. Now, the classification of infections. What is infection? Infection is entry of microbe. It finds a base where it can multiply. So it lodges itself and it multiplies. When a human witnessed a microbe for the first time, on the first entry of any microbe, our immune cells are just preparing to fight. They are first time introduced to that microorganism. That infection is called primary infection. Primary infection, first time immune cells are seeing that microorganism causing infection to us. This can be, primary infection can be studied under two types, that is acute infection and chronic infection. Acute infection is first time the microorganism is seeing the, first time our body, host is seeing the microorganism and it is fighting it out. So problem persists for a short time, short duration, and the symptoms may be not mild, but the microorganism is cleared. So this is acute infection. In case of chronic infection, this symptom persists for a longer period. The symptoms are milder than in case of acute infection, but they persist for a longer period. Second category of infection can be reinfections. In case of reinfection, it is like primary infection happened. That means microorganism was introduced for the first time to immune cells, and then it was cleared, recovered, host was recovered. Again, same microorganism attacked, and again the host got the infection, disease. So this is reinfection, like it is happening in case of Omicron. We are talking that it is causing more reinfections, while it has to be confirmed, but the buzz is going on. Then third kind of category can be secondary infections. What are secondary infections? Like we were undergoing treatment for one kind of infection, body was immune deficient, or not immune deficient, but there was one attack and another took opportunity to attack at the same time. It was like Portuguese were in India, at the same time English were also there. So both are disturbing the host. This is secondary infection. Two different kind of organisms, both are disturbing the host. Then focal infection. What is focal infection? It is focused on one point, one organ. It is localized, like if like tonsillitis, when tonsils are attacked, they are focused on tonsils. So focal infection is focused at localized. Cross infection happens because of person to person contact, or the used things like towels, and if we are using used article one person to another, it is traveling. So as I told you about Commensals differ in number in different organisms. So common cell know they know their own earth, as I've told you that common cells are the cells which are residing in an individual human body. So an individual on in which they are residing, they are in harmony. But if they travel from that individual to another individual, they may not be as harmonious with another individual. So they may cause problems. So using each other things may cause problem. That is that kind of problem, that kind of infection is cross infection. Now, iatrogenic infection, this happens because of total medical treatment, maybe due to the unhygienic conditions in which a patient is treated, maybe due to the clinician's hands, if not properly washed after each and every patient, maybe the side effect of some drug. So this is during medical treatment, the any kind of microorganisms enters, resides, and start multiplying. That is iatrogenic infection. Endogenous infection is the infection which may be caused because of the common cell. Common cell may become opportunistic. And exogenous infection caused because of the environment, organism present in the environment. These infections can be categorized on the basis of clinical effects too. One is inapparent infection. Inapparent infection is because of symptoms are not there. Microorganism is there, it is residing inside the host, but not producing any kind of symptom, like there is no fever, headache, nothing which through which we can say that we have got infected, a host have got infected. There is no symptom. So this is, but the microorganism is there. So this is an inapparent infection. Atypical infection is a kind of infection where typical kind of here we can take the example of Streptococcus pneumoniae. It produces pneumonia. So they are typical symptoms of pneumonia, respiratory problems, typical symptoms which are there. We are not going into the details of the symptoms in pneumonia. That can be taken at the time. Here, just remember that there are some symptoms. Respiratory problems are there. In case of pneumonia, you have respiratory problems. In atypical infection, what happened? You will have the symptoms of pneumonia, but they will be milder and they may not be because of Streptococcus pneumoniae. Some other organism may be causing. So milder symptoms will be the same, but not caused by the same organism. Like in Mycobacterium tuberculosis, atypical infection happens when there are symptoms of Mycobacterium tuberculosis, but not caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis itself, caused by some other species of Mycobacterium. So this is atypical infection. Now, what is latent infection? Latent infection is microorganism is residing inside the cell, but not replicating, not producing any kind of symptoms, and it is not even replicating. That's the case. Like in case of again, we take the example of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. If primary infection happens, it gets cleared off, but it can go into the macrophage and hide itself inside the macrophage. So it will be latent there, sitting there. Whenever favorable conditions, body is immunosuppressed, or any kind of favorable conditions arises, this shows symptoms, so start showing the symptoms, and cause disease can reoccur. That is latent infection. Now, sources of infection can be human can spread infection. There are healthy carriers. Healthy carriers are the ones we will never know that this person is harboring infectious organisms that we have already discussed, and that infectious organisms are not causing any problem to this particular person who's harboring it. So he is healthy. He is having those the bacteria is there, or the microorganism, viruses, anything can be within a human, but that human is not, that body is not, that host is not showing any symptoms. But when this person goes into a contact with another person, that other person can become a host for this, but the organism one person is carrying, but he was healthy. It can transfer to other person, and other person can catch and show the diseases. So healthy carriers are the ones which are very difficult to track. Then convalescent carriers are the carriers which show the problem. They have the symptoms, and they can transfer it to other person. Temporary carriers are the carriers which are were having the disease for 6 months. They if they are having the microorganisms residing in them, replicating, but they will be there for 6 months only. So they are the temporary carriers. Chronic carriers, when they can carry the microorganism for more than 6 months. They can be for n number of years also. Contact carriers, again, contact carriers came in contact with person and transferred it to other person. Paradoxical carriers are the ones who were treated, and they are out of the disease, and then again they get the disease and they can transfer to other. The paradoxical means they were having infection. Here, disease and infection I may be mixing up the two. The thing is, infection is very clearly defined. It is the entry of the microorganism, then it finds a base and start replicating. And once it start replicating, it will cause problems, since it is using up the cells of the host, and it may cause problem. And when it start causing problems, that is disease. So there's a difference between disease and infection. Now, the infections can be spread through animals also, animals to human being. The organisms are residing in animal, and they were not causing any problem to that particular animal species in which they were residing. So when this particular species, this particular microorganism is transferred from animal to human, then it causes infections, and finally infections lead to diseases. This we have witnessed, and this kind of infections, source of infection when animal to human happens, it is called zoonosis. And zoonosis is animal to human infection. There are certain examples like plague outbreak which happened because of the bacteria Yersinia pestis, which resides in rats. So when number of rats increases, Yersinia pestis is transferred to human. Same thing about virus, which causes rabies, and it resides in dogs. Protozoa, toxoplasmosis, which resides in cats. Helminth's hydatid disease, which Helminth's reside, which causes hydatid disease. This resides in dogs. Then there are certain fungal zoophilic dermatophytes which are present in cats and dogs, and they can cause us dermatophyte lesions. They can cause us skin problems. Then there are insects which can act as mechanical vectors as well as biological vectors. Mechanical vectors are like flies. In their legs, when they sit, they carry infectious organisms. Infectious organisms stick in their legs, and they can transfer it. And such cholera and this kind of microorganisms are cholera disease happens, and this Vibrio cholerae is transferred from this mechanical manner when this flies sit on contaminated food or water. Then coming to biological vectors, insects can act as biological vectors like mosquitoes, female mosquito, in which the sexual cycle of Plasmodium happens. So that is a biological vector. Then soil and water are also the sources of infection. We know that in soil, n number of bacteria are present, and if we have an open wound, Clostridium tetani is one of the example. Open wound, and it's soil, contaminated soil with Clostridium tetani, if it's exposed to our open wound, then we can get tetanus. And if we eat contaminated food, then also contaminated food gives lot many of problems to us. Even contaminated water, again, contaminated is, that means number of bacteria or viruses are present, or even some parasite, some protozoans or helminths can be present, and we by mistake we just inhaled it or taken it as food or water, or exposed to it. In case of soil, open wounds, so there is in soil there are the bacteria, and if it happens to come in contact with open wounds, it may cause problem to us. So eating contaminated food, vegetables can have cyst in it. So today we talked about infections and the organisms causing infection. We also covered what different kind of what is the classification of infections, and we talked about sources and modes of spreading of infections. Thank you so much.